And welcome back for another back of the book video. This is Aces High on the San Francisco The Secret by Byron Preiss. And I'm Charles Knapp. So let's get rolling here. You should have seen the previous videos that I have online, and it's really good to follow those in order, so this will be more understandable. But anyway, some of this is repeating, and we're starting here at the stone wall door, just like the verse. Previous video I had some of these marked in red, and the reason I'm putting this up here is because you can actually consider some of these items for fulfilling the verse, although I do believe the Aces High is on the other side, the bocce court, and same with the High Poster 3. There's a schooner over there at the Hyde Pier that you can see in the distance along with Coit Tower. But as you can see, there's some things in here that do satisfy the verse. There's the bocce courts right down here. And this video is about aces and Aces High. So we're going to look at Damon Runyon. So we start off with this particular image, and we're going to end with this image. As we've discovered in the previous videos, here's our ace right here. Aces High is also linked to corporate giants. Of course, the pilots as being aces here. And it's interesting to note that the giant is smoking a cigar. And of course, that's part of the whole Lily Coit and Coit Tower. She was a gambler, smoker of cigars. And it's interesting if you look at a 1933 poster of King Kong. You kind of compare that to the art in the back of the book, the Empire State Building. If you keep an eye on that, here's a color version. But if you compare the two, you can see that the artist, whoever drew that in the back of the book, I'm not sure, I didn't see which one, but that lines up perfectly, and that's our Empire State Building. So the artist used this poster as a guide. 1933 poster of King Kong, the movie. And we've talked about In Your Ear in a previous video. And again, that's part of corporate giants. So corporate giants is definitely associated with the San Francisco puzzle. And if we went through the anatomy, so to speak, of this image right here on a previous video. I'm not going to repeat it, but I will show the outcome of that. And that's our ace up high, the water fountain, and this is the arc and the concrete. So you can kind of see where we're headed with this, but we're going to talk a little bit about Damon Runyon. If you drop the E, like the typographical terror had put the E in there, you actually get a person. But I wanted to just show you the inscription here, and that means 7 come 11, which is craps phraseology. So you roll a dice, 7 come 11 is a phrase that is used. Now, I don't play, so I couldn't go any more in depth on that. But also, well, we'll get into it. Jumping contest of celebrated frogs, that's Mark Twain, and we'll get into that a little bit. So in the artwork that associated with Damon Runyon shows the two the dice that's used in craps. And also, if you notice in the background, it's a racing form, and that's significant. Biography of Damon Runyon. He had produced quite a few tales of gamblers in the 30s, 20s, and 30s. He was a newspaper man and also short story writer. And so Damon Runyon, back of the book, is concerning gambling and craps. And you can see here that horse races. So that's why the background of that drawing had the racing form. It's a horse race publication or document that's used for horse racing. Okay, so in addition, Damon Runyon had written some plays that later became movies. And, you know, just for example, here's a 1934 film, and it involved Shirley Temple. And, of course, gambling was part of that play, part of that film, excuse me. And so, you know, you get a common theme going on here. Here's another one, Guys and Dolls. And that was an adaptation of Damon Runyon's short stories. Again, concerning gangsters and gamblers and that sort of thing. So we need to look at the wording a little closer. And we briefly mentioned jumping contest of celebrated frogs. That's in reference to Mark Twain, which is obviously in the verse for San Francisco. Some other words in here that are of interest are the corner, a card in a card counter's ear. In other words, in your ear. And I have a previous video called In Your Ear that goes through that. And also ends up at the giant's ear, corporate giant. There's some other things in here like the drowned you in the office pool. I don't know if that's a reference to the West Ghost and Narcissus. And we also have Columbus, which there's Christopher Columbus. We used to have a statue up at Telegraph Hill across from Coit Tower. That's gone now. In Mississippi, another Mark Twain reference, the river boats and the gambling. And then down at the bottom, we see flush busting, and we also see fingernails and breaking your heart, breaking your leg. So some of this we can explain, but here's the Mark Twain Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. And it's interesting, that book involves a character by the name of Simon who has a problem with gambling. Mark Twain also was involved on commenting about Mr. and Mrs. Coit and their relationship. So Coit Tower could be obviously an object of Twain's attention. And here's Lily Coit. She smoked cigars and she was an avid gambler. Okay, and of course the statue of Columbus that used to be up at Coit, across from Coit Tower on Telegraph Hill. And first across, as in first across town, or first across the Atlantic. There's all kinds of explanations for first across in the verse. You can also get a cross as far as cross legs. And this is an interpretation, obviously, of our water fountain, which is a ace. And it's also a spade, as you'll see, or you've seen in the previous earlier video on the serpent tails loophole. And you'll also notice on this one, it's very interesting, the Damon Runyon, if you were going to call him that, is sitting here with his legs crossed and on the spades, and his foot is next to the 3. Here's the fingernail that we're looking for in the spotter's tips. So the fingernail is a spotter's tip. Well, if our cask is 3 feet from the spade or the water fountain, that would be a nice interpretation. So we'll continue on. Same thing here, fingernail, X marks the spot, and it's 3 feet from that point. And of course, at the end of a West Ghost, we noted there was a 3 at the corner, and right at the corner. And interesting, this looks kind of like a snake. And I was thinking like snake eyes. Okay, typographical terrors. This is put in there in the back of the book because of wordplay. Byron Preiss obviously changes some of the words, changes some of the lettering, and notice it's got Northern California listed, which would be San Francisco. So we're going to employ that in this puzzle, and we're going to use it with Robert E. Howard. This is 1933. He would write these interesting pulp magazine, Pulp Fiction, and there was many times an Oriental theme to it. And so we're going to look at that briefly. And that's him, Robert E. Howard. And he developed a character, Conan the Barbarian. And he was regarded as the father of the sword and sorcery. And also Howard, Robert E. Howard, was involved for writing stories in Weird Tales. So if you keep those things in mind, there were many novels that were put out under the publishing company of Ace. You kind of see where we're headed with this. Well, Ace and Ace Books was a huge was a company that put out quite a few of these fantasy novels and the older novels, particularly in the 30s, and redid a lot of them in the 70s. And Robert E. Howard was involved with Weird Tales. And so we're making a transition here. There was something put out similar called Weird Heroes, also by Ace Books, by none other than Byron Preiss. Now, I would think Byron would know about Howard. I would bet, I would gamble on that. So, let's start. Okay, so where does that leave us? Where does it lead us? Well, let's do the typographical terror here. And you can see there was a Robert B. Howard that developed this cast. And this cast is above the tower. It's on the tower above the entrance on Coit Tower. It's right there. And that's an Aces High. So one of the references in the verse could be considering that as Ace High. Aces High. And you could also say, well, that's kind of a stone wall door, and we got 3 posts and a giant pole. And the reason I'm pointing that out is this puzzle has the upside, downside, and flip it upside, downside, as well as left and right. So if you get all the way to the bottom and you're kind of stuck, well, if you start back at the top, if you flip back up to the top, you can get some of these clues. That's just a theory, but we'll see here what. And here it shows it. Stonewall's door, not far away, high poster 3, education and justice. You can see Alcatraz from Coit Tower for all to see. Near Aces High. So you can kind of see how this helps you confirm where the final burial spot, the dig spot is. And so that will sum up Aces High, with the exception of the very end of the tail. And this was covered also in the first video. As you come down the serpent, or you're going to come around, and this is the final number. It's a countdown down to 1, and 1 is the ace. And you follow the tail around, and it gets to the cross. And it's like a cross, a burial spot. So, and if you filled this in, you'd get a spade. So you got like the ace of spades there. So this is their dig spot, and we pointed this out in previous interpretations of this puzzle in the videos. So there's our ace. If you're a small businessman, which we haven't even covered yet, that's a giant pole, and that's certainly a giant step. And lastly, these things might help explain what's going on up here. That's an ace, and that's an ace. A starting ace and an ending ace. And Ghirardelli would be that symbol. Ace Books, that symbol. So that's the totality of this video, and I hope you enjoyed it, and peace out.